This is the My Ford University podcast, episode 2. What you should have learned in college, MBA, and PhD school, even if you never went. Welcome, colleagues, to My Ford University. I'm George Sloan, founder, dean, and your guide to fast, practical, no BS education. Here we don't chase degrees, we chase results. And today we're talking about something big. What you really should have learned in college, MBA school, or in a PhD program, even if you never went. Too many colleges today have gotten to the idea of teaching you what to think as opposed to how to think. And what to think is very limiting because you only have one way of looking at things, whereas how to think is a whole different situation. You're able to problem solve, iterate, pivot, make changes. You're a whole lot more valuable and a whole lot more flexible. So let's get to it. What college was supposed to teach. A 4-year college degree should have prepared you for the real world by building a number of skills and knowledge bases. Let's start with basic research and analysis. I'm not talking about Wikipedia skimming. I'm talking about real inquiry. The ability to look at situations, gather facts, and draw critical judgments based on it. Quite frankly, these days, everyone should have some level of quantitative ability, the ability to look at numbers and draw conclusions from data. There's data everywhere. The other thing that college should have taught you about was critical thinking. Critical thinking is probably the bedrock of everything when it comes to college thinking. And here's what it really gets down to: questioning assumptions, challenging the obvious, not taking anything for pure face value, but actually doing a full-blown look at the situation, asking questions, weighing, considering, and then making an informed, intelligent judgment based on what you think and your knowledge and experiences. Next thing, they should have taught you comparative analysis. This gets into weighing two or more ideas, not just swallowing it, the first one that you're handed. It involves looking at things from a number of different perspectives, tearing and comparing. Some people like to say apples to apples, not apples to oranges, but apples to apples. You want to make sure that you're looking at things and getting a full-blown picture in order to make an informed, intelligent decision in terms of what your belief or perspective is on it. Next thing, college should have taught you problem solving, not multiple choice tests. I'm talking real, messy problems with no obvious answers. One of the things that you should learn when you go through this process is there is no real one right answer. There's multiple right answers. Not everything is black and white. Sometimes there are shades of gray. You don't want to just think in terms of one possible solution. I always like to say, let's look at good, better, and best. Creative thinking is another thing that you should learn. Originality, improvisation, lateral thinking, the ability to come up with solutions. Sometimes it's called thinking outside the box. But the bottom line with it is you're not necessarily stuck with one approach. The more you know and the more experience you have, which is, again, one of the foundations that we are working on here, we want to make sure that you are applying your knowledge, and creative thinking really tests that. Another thing that you would learn in college, or should have learned, design thinking. This is user-centered innovation and idea execution. You want to design situations, say we're talking about your customers for a second, where it is a smooth, easy transition or transaction. Another term I like hearing and using is frictionless. You want to make it as smooth and easy as possible. Another thing you should have learned in college is systems thinking, seeing the forest and the trees. Everything is a system or a process. If you boil it down and you really get a look at it and take it from a perspective of pretending like you don't know and haven't gone through it 1,000 times, you will get to understand what the system looks like, and there might be ways to improve it. There may be things you can take out. This is all stuff that you should have learned. Another thing, collaboration skills, actually working well with others and under pressure. Nobody has a franchise on all the good ideas. I've said that to many people many times. Sometimes you can come up with an idea, or you're sitting in a room, for example, where you hear one person say one thing, another person says another, and you're sitting there going, hey, what if we put those two things together? So that's the value of collaboration. I would also, a subset of that is brainstorming, when you sit down and come up with ideas in a group. Negotiation skills, basically convincing people without a bulldozer, without forcing people to do things, but looking for ways to create a win-win situation where they get what they want and you get what you want. And sometimes there's a little bit of compromise on both sides, but the ability to negotiate. Another thing you should have learned in college was effective writing. I'm talking clear, persuasive, and structured. When you're going to make an argument for something, or a business case, for example, you want to state what it is you want, you want to state why you want it, and you want to give reasons and examples to make your writing more compelling. The other thing, when you're doing even a memo, you want to make sure that it's clearly understood by anyone, even if they picked it up and knew nothing about it. Another thing in college, should have picked up presentation skills. Again, speaking with confidence, clarity, and purpose. You want to get comfortable with that. I've heard the old story is people fear getting up and doing public speaking more than they fear death. It's really not that bad. It's a skill that can be developed, and with proper preparation, you can shine through it. A lot of these things that I've just mentioned are already on the Myford University website. There are full-blown articles on the blog. There's streamlined ones that are available on the newsletter, and I'm dropping quite a few of the podcast and video podcasts in the coming days. So you might want to check some of that out if you want to get to it. Anyway, sound familiar? You really should have learned these things, but I'm pretty sure that you're going to tell me we didn't really cover some of that. A lot of people come out of college with debt and doubt, but few usable skills. And if you never went to college, don't feel too bad. You might be in better shape than you think. You might feel like you missed something, but you didn't. Let me tell you, you didn't miss as much as you think you did. In fact, some of the people who went to college missed quite a few of the things I just mentioned. So if you don't have that and you want it, there is a way to get it, and you don't need a $100,000, $200,000 bill to learn and solve problems and communicate well. You just need the right guide, and that's what we're doing here. Let's talk about MBA school. Well, when a lot of people go to MBA school, they have certain anticipations, expectations, and they're usually thinking about the end result, which isn't even necessarily guaranteed. What they should be focusing on is learning the basics and things that they can use in combination to get themselves better results in the business world. So MBA programs should really be about applied business strategy. Let's talk about some of the things that you really want to look for in an MBA program and what you should have learned in an MBA program. Business research and analysis. This is an important role. You want to be able to understand what the situation is, and this probably takes the form of being able to do market studies, financial breakdowns, and customer deep dives. If you don't have this ability, you're really behind the eight ball on this. It's something that you need because it helps you make other decisions further down the list here. For example, strategy is another thing you should learn. This is long-term thinking, it's trade-offs, it's competitive positioning, looking at the entire situation and trying to make educated estimates, or guesstimates, if you will, not shooting in the dark, but actually coming up with an approach and multiple approaches should you need to pivot. Leadership. This is not just team building, but decision making, influence, and vision. To me, I almost feel like this was the number one thing that was probably missing. They really didn't focus on leadership and team building in the sense that they kind of glossed over it. It was just kind of in the rest, inside of all the other things. And I am a firm believer going forward, especially in the world of AI, that soft skills and being able to deal with and work with people and lead people And I have a whole thing that I'm going to be putting together in terms of a concept to discuss on what the difference is between a boss, a manager, and a leader. That'll be a upcoming podcast and, of course, articles. Another thing in MBA school, finance, cash flow, profit margins, valuations, and KPIs, which are key performance indicators. Um, Also very important. You got to know where you stand. Marketing. I'm talking real market research, messaging, branding, positioning. There's a whole bunch of avenues that we can go down here. And again, on the My Ford University website and under the blog, you're going to find quite a few pieces of this already in place. I highly recommend you visit. Operations, logistics, supply chains, process improvement. This is normally considered an unsexy, boring thing, but quite frankly, especially during COVID, supply chains were impacted and it suddenly became a lot more important. Additionally, process improvements in logistics can actually save you money and make you more competitive. So don't just overlook it. I know it doesn't have that sex appeal that, say, marketing or finance does, but operations is very important. Now, the next one is, to me, one of the big foundations of what an MBA should have: business models and frameworks. If you can understand concepts, business models, and frameworks, you can go a long way to competing with an MBA. In fact, a lot of them don't even have all the tools in their quiver because they haven't spent the time to develop it. It got glossed over. What am I talking about? I'm talking about SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That is one that kind of runs across almost every single aspect of an MBA analysis and reporting. So that one is also on My Ford University already. The next one, the BCG Matrix, which is Boston Consultant Group Matrix. It's a really good tool for identifying markets and portfolio management of products. Again, it's available on My Ford University. Porter's Five Forces, that's coming up on My Ford University, and the Lean Canvas is also coming up. Once again, here we are, negotiation. Knowing when to hold firm and when to concede, and how to get more than you give. Now, again, negotiation is not always about someone wins and someone loses. Sometimes there is a win-win situation. The bottom line with almost anything, even marketing and sales, is an exchange of value. You have something they want, they have something that you want, and it's a question of coming and meeting in the middle. Business writing, even more important. The ability to write executive summaries, business plans, pitch decks, strategic plans, marketing plans, business cases. You've got to be able to communicate effectively and give reasons for everything. I tend to recommend the 5WH model: what, who, why, when, where, and how. If you kind of work within that framework, you really will communicate in an effective way. Once again, presentation, especially to executives, speaking the language of ROI, or return on investment, risk, and results. The ability to speak clearly and to speak on your feet, very, very important. Instead, most MBA schools spend 2 years rehashing PowerPoint decks and corporate buzzwords. If you're thinking about grad school or still paying off student loans, you know what I mean. Here at My Ford University, we teach these skills clean, fast, and in plain language you can actually use. I am a firm believer of trying to make the complex simple. Again, I may have said it before. The concepts of an MBA program can be boiled down to the point where a motivated 12-year-old could understand most of it. I said motivated. The bottom line is you're able to get these skills and you can get them quickly. That's, again, one of the foundations of My Ford University. Learn it fast, apply it faster. Let's talk about PhDs. Now, PhD, or philosophy doctorate, or doctor of philosophy, they're a little bit different, but not entirely different. You're going to see some overlap in some of the things that we talk about here. So a PhD is really supposed to get into advanced research. Effectively, a PhD becomes what's known as a SME, a subject matter expert. they really take deep dives. So advanced research, they get into hypothesis testing, they do literature reviews or surveys, um, quite a bit of data synthesis. And what you really want to do here and think here is how you can do a deep dive. I have a secret for you. You don't need to be a PhD to be a top quality researcher. And I will share a lot of the secrets that I know to do high level research and do it quickly, all at my Ford University. Now, the other thing about PhDs, they seek extreme depth in at least one area. They own a corner of knowledge. One of the things you got to be careful about is over specializing. I am a firm believer in having a broad understanding of certain functions and going a little bit deeper in some areas. So there's a concept known as a broken comb, and I will have a full concept discussion on that in the near future. But you want to be broad and cross functional, and then have certain areas where you know a lot, and some areas you only know a little, and some in between. That's a comb type person, as opposed to a T person, an I person. Again, I'll get into that in a full blown. It's a whole discussion. Another thing, PhDs are expected to have flawless writing skills. We're talking academic writing, professional grade, thought leadership, and argumentation skills. One of the big things with a PhD is to get to do a thesis paper and to publish. A lot of these folks move on into teaching roles at higher level institutions, and what they are trying to do is build a knowledge base and be the expert in their realm or area that they dig into. Another thing, the ability for rigorous discussion and debate. These folks are sometimes called upon to be experts, and sometimes they'll be in roundtables or panel discussions, and they need to be able to make and defend their ideas and theories under pressure. Finally, and this was kind of hinted at before, a contribution to your field. Not parroting what everyone else is talking about, but shaping the conversation. Little secret here, a lot of them are starting to kind of move in one particular direction. That's because of the government and grants. We'll get into that in another discussion. But the bottom line is you're supposed to be coming up with cutting edge research. You're supposed to be the vanguard, the thought leader. That's where they're supposed to be. But in reality, a lot of these folks are just becoming uh, publishers of obscure papers in unread journals. If you're, if you've never heard of systems thinking or comparative analysis, don't sweat it. We're going to break it down. I'm going to show you in more detail what it is, why it's important, and how to use it. And again, this is not complicated stuff. They want you to think it's complicated because that makes them feel more self-important. It's really simple when you get right down to it. So, if you didn't go to college, again, don't worry, you're not behind. I mean, for those of you that never went to college, good news, you're not behind. You're not less intelligent. In fact, in some cases, these days, I think some people that choose not to go to college but actually go out into the workforce and develop their skills, I think they might be the smart ones. But, that's just my opinion. I'm sure you might have that same opinion when you're dealing with some of these people who are considered highly educated, who are pseudo-intellectual elites. And quite frankly, I'm usually not impressed because when you start to talk to them, they don't really get it. I think of that scene in Good Will Hunting where they're in the bar and the guy is actually paraphrasing out of a series of history books, and Will Hunting comes and catches him doing it. Kind of a funny scene, but that's exactly the kind of person that I'm trying to describe, where they're trying to pretend like they know all this stuff, and they're really just spewing back and parroting what they know. Again, they just went and got their ticket punched. You can be just as smart, if not smarter than them, and know what they know without having to go and waste years of your life and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, as far as I'm concerned, you've never had access to material in a way that you do right now. And Because of that, there's a number of things that we can leverage, and we're going to change the way you look at alternative higher education. Because, as I say, we're a little bit different. I firmly believe knowledge and skills are wonderful, but it really doesn't matter until you start applying it. So at my Ford University, we're not going to ask for years of your life and hundreds of thousands of dollars in tuition. We just ask for your attention, your effort, and your willingness to take action. We're looking for people that are motivated and want to move forward with their lives without having to give up their lives. So if you're thinking about college, you might want to think again. So if you're on the fence, ask yourself a few questions. And again, this is for people who are thinking about college or MBA school or even going for a PhD or a second master's. What do I want to learn is a question you should be asking. If you can't identify that, you probably aren't going for the right reason. You're probably going just for the degree because you think it'll grant you some access. Honestly, I don't understand why people will pay to get something that they can get in the field with a little bit of focused study and work and trial and error. Learn on your own while you earn. So another question, will this degree actually help me get to where you want to go? I don't know. I did mention in the first episode of the podcast, and I'm going to be covering that in the future, there are some situations where they've put degree requirements in place for certain fields simply because it's a barrier to entry. And it's kind of self-serving because it makes you have to go to school longer and give them money. It's crazy. Finally, ask yourself, is there a faster and cheaper way? And I will tell you right now, there are many faster and cheaper ways to get as good a result or even a better result. So most people never ask themselves these questions, or if they do, it's usually too late. But you should be asking them right now. Again, whether you are thinking of going to college, whether you have just gotten out and you're thinking, oh, maybe I'll go for another degree, think hard and think about getting real world experience. So stick with me and I'll give you an alternative that delivers very fast. Again, learn it fast, apply it faster, and get those results. So let me give you a feel for what's coming. Each week, I'm going to share more skills that college or MBA school or PhD school skipped over. We're going to talk a lot about strategy. We're going to talk a little bit about finance. We're going to talk about communication. We're going to talk about leadership. Again, soft skills, man. Design thinking, systems thinking, and other thinking methods. And thinking is a big thing. Thinking is something that a lot of people don't do anymore because it's hard work, but hard work that pays very well. So start thinking and using your brain, make better decisions. With the things you're going to learn here, you'll be better equipped to do precisely that. We're going to make it clear, we're going to make it useful. You're going to learn it, you're going to apply it, and you're going to win with it. Again, learn it fast, apply it faster, and get those results. So with that, I say thank you one and all for tuning in. I invite you to go to the website. Again, there's a newsletter, there's a blog, there are podcasts. There's going to be video podcasts going up in the next couple of days. I really look forward to working with you. We are going to help you get better results without having to waste time and serious money to go to college and in many ways be disappointed. I think I mentioned last time, things are changing so fast that things that you would learn in your first year, by the time you get to your fourth year, some of that stuff's going to be obsolete. Things are just moving way too quick. So if you're motivated and want to learn things and earn money and get results, this is the place to be. We look forward to seeing you. Again, these will typically drop on Tuesdays. We are very much geared into doing this in a way that's going to benefit you as quickly as possible. So until next time, learn it, apply it, and get results. We'll see you on the next one.